out for more than a millennium. Quote, men are coming to while away. When one culture has the big guns and the other has none, there is a certain predictability about the outcome. At the same time, and in a far more affirmative sense, Russ's title could be understood as referring to her story's publication, as well as that of the anthology in which it appeared, the Harlan Ellison edited collection Again Dangerous Visions, which also included the late Ursula Le Guin's Hugo Award-winning Vietnam War anti-war novella, The Word for World is Forest, the latter a direct influence on both the original Star Wars franchise and James Cameron's Avatar. These works would have a profound effect on the field of science fiction, inaugurating a vibrant new wave of feminist and militant utopian science fiction. In the terms of the practice of science fiction, then, 1972 should also be understood as one of those years when things change. Now, in this essay, I focus on another year of equally significant literary and cultural transformation. The year 1984 has long been one of singular importance in the history of science fiction, largely because it was chosen by George Orwell as the fictional setting for his grim masterpiece, the anti-utopia dystopia, 1984. However, 1984 also proved to be of great significance within the genre, as it witnessed the publication of 3 novels, Delaney's Stars in My Pocket, Gibson's Neuromancer, and Robinson's The Wild Shore, which at once marked the past, present, and future of not only the practice of science fiction, but of notions of the literary more generally. Now, the year 1984 was one of extraordinary ferment and change in cultural production writ large, so much so that in an earlier essay on Gibson's pattern recognition, I advanced the claim that 1984 stands to postmodernism as 1922 does to modernism. Not surprisingly, a number of the works released in that year, Martin Amis's satirical novel Money, Michael Radford's film 1984, Ridley Scott's legendary Apple Macintosh Community, and Nam June Paik's experimental multimedia broadcast, Good Morning, Mr. Orwell. This is from an exhibition actually 5 years ago in Korea, anniversary. This is a scene from the multimedia production. All of these works directly take up and respond to themes and concerns in Orwell's fiction, all working to show, as the final title card of Scott's commercial declares, why 1984 won't be like 1984. Now, you have the longer list of many of the significant texts that appear in that year, and I won't go through them all. And one of the ways this project has continued to grow since I began it is hearing from other people about prominent works they think appeared in that year, and so if you have any titles, I would love to hear them. But among the other significant literary works to appear were J.G. Ballard's Empire of the Sun, Julian Barnes' Flaubert's Parrot, Don DeLillo's White Noise, Milan Kundera's The Unbearable Lightness of Being, David Lodge's A Small World, an academic romance, and Pratibha Ray's Young Nanseni. The year also saw the publication of debut novels by Sandra Cisneros, The House on Mango Street, Tom Clancy, The Hunt for Red October, Louise Erdrich, Love Medicine, Carrie Hume, The Bone People, and Jay McInerney's Bright Lights, Big City. And the release of such influential films as James Cameron's The Terminator, the Coen brothers' directorial debut Blood Simple, and John Sayles' The Brother from Another Planet. In 1984, the second and third volume of Michel Foucault's groundbreaking Histoire de la Sexualité were published shortly before the great philosopher's death, as was the expanded English language edition of Jean-Francois Lyotard's The Postmodern Condition. Phillip Johnson's iconic AT&T building in New York City, whose open pediment crown, one critic recently suggests, quote, may be the most significant architectural detail of the last 50 years, and PPG Place in Pittsburgh were also completed that year. Michael Azerrad, in a recent study, using a phrase that recalls Harry Levin's celebrated characterization of the modernist year of 1922, notes that for punk music, 1984 was, quote, a year that yielded a spate of bona fide classics. it was an annus mirabilis for indie. And Billboard magazine similarly named 1984 pop music's best year ever. Now, the year also witnessed the publication of a series of essays by the literary and cultural theorist Frederick Jameson that would bring to new prominence the notion of postmodernism. The most significant of these essays first appeared that summer in the pages of New Left Review under the title Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism. Perry Anderson points out that this essay, quote, redrew the whole map of the postmodern at one stroke, a prodigious inaugural gesture that has commanded the field ever since. Near the conclusion of his essay, Jameson characterizes postmodernism, or what he now refers to as postmodernity, as involving fundamental mutations in global space. Quote, what we must now affirm is that it is precisely this whole extraordinarily demoralizing and depressing original new global space which is the moment of truth of postmodernism. Postmodernism, or multinational space, is not merely a cultural ideology or fantasy, but has genuine historical and socioeconomic reality. As a third great original expansion of capitalism around the globe, after the earlier expansions of the national market and the older imperialist system, which each had their own cultural specificity and generated new types of space appropriate to their dynamics. The distorted and unreflexive attempts of newer cultural production to explore and to express this new space must then also, in their own fashion, be considered as so many approaches to the representations of a new reality, to use a more antiquated language. As paradoxical as the terms may seem, they may thus, following a classic interpretive option, be read as a peculiar new forms of realism, or at least of the mimesis of reality, at the same time that they can equally well be analyzed as so many attempts to distract and divert us from that reality, or to disguise its contradictions and resolve them in the guise of various formal mystifications. Now, such an expansion, Jameson further maintains, quote, a new historically original penetration and colonization of nature and the unconscious. That is, the destruction of pre-capitalist third world agriculture by the Green Revolution and the rise of media and the advertising industry. Of course, the moment when dramatic changes are